For the 32nd time in WWE history, the biggest feuds of the summer will come to a head in the second biggest pay-per-view of the year this Sunday in Toronto when SummerSlam 2019 invades. And this is the State of Combat podcast on CBS Sports, ready to get you all kinds of fired up. The Brian Campbell, the face you see at the moment from Stamford, Connecticut, a city that knows a few things about pro wrestling. And with me is my co-host, the Silver King himself, Adam Silverstein. Adam, you ready for this biggest party of the summer? You fired up here, bro?
Brian, yes, I am. Although, let's be honest, I don't know that WWE has given us much reason to be fired up, despite the fact that this does look like a card that might deliver on Sunday.
You could call it rose-colored glasses, Silver King. You can call it a finely knitted rose-covered shirt. But I got optimism. I know you've heard this before ahead of a big pay-per-view, but it's a unique situation where we stand right now, August, the year of our Lord 2019, as the great Nick Costos would say. WWE in a transitional period. We know SmackDown moving to Fox, national television in October. We know AEW is launching. So if there's ever any kind of pressure to put on a big show and really make SummerSlam matter, it's certainly this one, this Sunday. Fired up to break it down. And if you are listening to this podcast, the audio version of the State of Combat, we do remind you to check out this here video preview on YouTube. Check out my mug. Check out the Silver King. Hey, Adam, I don't have anything else to say, anything else to sell. I'm ready to break this card down. This is the big stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. We do have a 10-match card. It looks like 11. One's not completely officially announced just yet, and knowing WWE, we'll probably get one or two added between now and Sunday when the show actually does go down from Toronto, BC. But let's get it started. We see the featured matchups on this card. Brock Lesnar against Seth Rollins for the Universal Championship. You have Kofi Kingston defending his WWE Championship against Randy Orton. And, of course, Charlotte Flair and Trish Stratus in a match that you could have told me this would main event WrestleMania one day, and I'd believe you, the greatest current women's wrestler in WWE against the greatest former Hall of Famer women's wrestler in WWE in Trish Stratus, BC. But let's start. Let's break this card down, and let's get it going with this Cruiserweight Championship match between Drew Gulak and ONEY LORCAN. ONEY LORCAN just got the #1 contendership on 205 Live Tuesday, just a few days out from SummerSlam. And BC, the question's an easy one for you. Are you excited about this at all?
Yeah, from a high work rate standpoint, look, this is what the Cruiserweight division does for us when they show up on these pay-per-view cards. They deliver a kickoff show match you have to see, usually 12, 13 minutes of great in-ring work. Look, ONEY LORCAN, he may be Bizarro Cesaro, as I think one of our listeners dubbed him at one point, but the guy can work. We've seen him in NXT, and he might be the perfect sort of foil for the style that Drew Gulak brings in there. LORCAN can do the high-flying stuff just as well as he can do the stiff sort of striking and operation here. But this is Drew Gulak's match to win from a storyline standpoint, from a momentum standpoint. The guy's really doing great work on the microphone and presenting himself as a true sort of unique superstar. I like the idea of this match. I like the way I'm going to feel when I see this match. But I don't need to see anything more than a solid, hard, stiff, well-worked 12, 13-minute affair.
Yeah, you nailed it. And it is a 2-hour kickoff show, so it does make sense to put a match like this on there that may go 10, 12, 15 minutes. But look, ONEY LORCAN, despite him being a good hand, doesn't really do much for me in terms of being a contender, especially at SummerSlam. So this to me just speaks to a match that Drew Gulak gets to win, gets to retain his title. There's not really a huge challenge there from his challenger. But look, the Cruiserweight division, I think we know the 205 Live show has been depleted with the names Cedric Alexander, Ali, Buddy Murphy that have been brought up to the main roster, and they haven't really replaced them. And bringing ONEY LORCAN there doesn't really do it for me. Don't forget, Brian, they just recently had Chad Gable wrestle a couple matches on the show. This would have been an incredible opportunity for Gulak versus Gable on SummerSlam. You could have given Gable the title, had him make a run with it, and brought some attention to this 205 Live show. For me personally, this just does not do it. But you know what does, and I have a feeling you may disagree with me on it, BC. The next match, Goldberg versus Dolph Ziggler. Dolph Ziggler was dropping hints for weeks, insulting Goldberg for his appearance at Super Showdown against The Undertaker out there in Saudi Arabia. We don't like to talk about that too much. Now, all of a sudden, we have Goldberg in a match at SummerSlam. What do you think is going to happen here? And honestly, do you even want to see this match?
What do I think is going to happen? What happens in a Goldberg pay-per-view match? It's like a 4-minute squash. We know what's going to happen right here. The question is, should it be happening? Should we care? Should we be excited about this? My answer to any question you have is going to be no. I had a nice first-class flight a few weeks ago, Adam. Can I put myself over here for a second? Had one of those lay-down sort of bed chairs that you get there. I had the, top-shelf gourmet food. I, got my own sheets and a robe. Damon Wayans, the actor, was sitting behind me, randomly enough, disguised nicely with the hat and the hood and the glasses. I could really channel my inner Damon Wayans and go old school in living color and tell you, hated it, hated the build for this, hate the idea for it. 2 snaps down, brother. All right, if you are a Goldberg mark and you are popping for this, that's fine. It seemed like there were plenty of Goldberg marks in that arena on Monday Night Raw when this came together with the Miz TV segment. My question is, why does this make sense at all? They haven't gone the lengths to establish Dolph Ziggler's character as a true legend hater like they did for Chris Jericho ahead of WrestleMania 25. This has been rushed like a lot of this SmackDown build has. Again, I mentioned off the top of the show, unique circumstances right now. They brought in Paul Heyman. They brought in Eric Bischoff to sort of appease to any worried stockholders that creative was going in the wrong direction ahead of such a big Fox launch coming for SmackDown. So there's certainly pressure on this show to deliver. I'm not against the idea of grabbing Goldberg, who's still in great shape, and saying, hey, help us, go out there, help us bring back some casuals. It just doesn't make sense right now. It doesn't make sense for Dolph Ziggler here, and to use the tease of Shawn Michaels in recent weeks, to use him in this segment. It sucks. Am I a Shawn Michaels mark? Yes. He showed us in Saudi he's still got it. We've been waiting more than a decade to find out if he's still got it. Well, he's still got it. Him and Dolph Ziggler storyline-wise. The fact that Dolph Ziggler is more of a poor man's Shawn Michaels historically, if we're being truly honest. They addressed that in the build here. They didn't give us the payoff. To have The Miz, character-wise, go to the lengths of tricking Dolph by doctoring the contract and putting Goldberg's name down. So what are we set up for here, Adam? We're set up for Goldberg to run in and do what he does. Spear, jackhammer, 3-4 minutes. You're out of here. He gets the big pop. I'm sorry, Goldberg. You already had your victory tour. It was fantastic. You came back and won the championship against Kevin Owens. You did the big business against Brock Lesnar. Your son and wife were so happy. They'd never seen you work before. They were there. We love it. Your in-laws were there in Denver. I've seen it before, Bill. I've seen it. And now you're going to have to sacrifice Dolph Ziggler to this? If it had been a more hated heel in this spot, a Baron Corbin, whose job it is to get people mad and then take the L, do the business, maybe I'd be a little bit more excited. But Adam, give me any reason to believe that I should care about this, that I'll feel anything but bad for Dolph Ziggler when it's all said and done.
Well, I can't give you a reason to care. One reason I'll tell you it might be decent is the fact that coming out of that Super Showdown match that was truly embarrassing for Goldberg, truly embarrassing for The Undertaker. It seems that WWE is giving them both an opportunity to make amends, and not just make amends, but leave on a high note, at least in terms of their careers. And I'm sure Undertaker will be back. I don't know about Goldberg, but Taker got that match with Roman Reigns, the tag team match. He looked great. He looked like he could go another 3 or 4 years. And Goldberg coming out of that match with Taker is getting someone in Dolph Ziggler who he can beat up. Dolph's been beaten down so many times in his WWE career when otherwise we'd think he's getting a major push. That losing to Goldberg doesn't hurt him from a character standpoint because he really can't get stomped on anymore. But you actually made a great point.
Yeah, but it may hurt him from a real-life standpoint. He may get his neck broken.
Well,
is Goldberg trustworthy in the ring in the year of our Lord right now? Come on, Adam.
I don't know, but you can believe what he says, which is that he was concussed at Super Showdown. And if you want to give him that benefit of the doubt, I think Dolph will be okay, especially if it's only a 2 or 3 or 4 minute match here. Get him in, get him out. Let's move on. But as far as I'm concerned, I don't mind seeing Goldberg. What I do mind is a 2-week build to a match we really don't need on the second biggest show of the year. So I think the entire SummerSlam build has been rushed. It's something I said earlier in our actual audio show, which, by the way, you can download wherever you do get fine podcast, audio, Apple, iTunes, Spotify, everywhere. The whole build was rushed, and this match itself is emblematic of the entire thing, BC. But we're going to move on.
I just don't tease. No, you're not going to move. You're going to stay right here.
I want to move on. I want to get the show going,
man. Don't tease me with what I need. Don't have me believe I'm going to get Buddy Murphy in a Roman Reigns feud. Don't have me believe Shawn Michaels is coming back. You want to write a feud that would make sense for Goldberg? What is every question he got asked during his comeback to the Hall of Fame and comeback to WrestleMania? Who does the spear these days as good as yours? He took that personally. He doesn't like Edge's spear or Rhino's gore or Roman Reigns' spear. Is it that hard to do a Roman Reigns Goldberg passing of the torch, shake hands, do the business? Your spear's pretty damn good, Roman. Let's move it forward. No, now we got to sell Dolph Ziggler's soul to him. Not cool. All right, I take this seriously. Keep it moving.
The biggest sin overall is that they teased Ziggler-Michaels, which is the match we have always wanted, and didn't pay it off, and instead gave us a match we've never thought about once in our entire lives until maybe 2 weeks ago, BC. But a match I am excited about is the Fiend, Bray Wyatt, against Finn Balor. Not the demon Finn Balor, just Finn Balor. We do know that Balor has requested a little bit of time off from WWE. We're expecting this to be a short, temporary swan song for him. But I think the work that the Fiend has done on WWE TV recently, on Raw especially, allowing him to go over Mick Foley and Kurt Angle with the mandible claw, the thematic work they're doing with the lights and the music. This has been an absolute home run from the first vignette all the way up until the build for this match. And I see no reason, BC, why the Fiend will not be going over here. But tell me, how do you see this playing out?
You know, it's apropos that the first legend he took out with that mandible claw using Mick Foley's move was Mick Foley himself, who really kind of was ahead of the game in the idea of doing multiple personalities, multiple characters at the same time. Bray Wyatt's doing that right now with two different ones, with the reformed Bray, with the Funhouse, and obviously the Fiend. And pro wrestling is so subjective, Adam. We know this. There's always something to complain about because you can't please everyone. Things that people think are great, other people hate. Everyone knows what they're watching right now with this Bray Wyatt Fiend turn. Perfection every single week. There's almost nothing to critique. Even for you, the guy who applies the black lining to the silver cloud there. There's nothing not to like here. So how do they continue to make magic? Let this be as short and violent as possible. In fact, don't even have a match. Let the Fiend show up, let him mess with Finn Balor's head, and let him absolutely destroy him. You threw in that little bit of inside baseball dirt sheet there that Finn could be going away for a while. The best way to send him away is to destroy him.
Absolutely. And as you see on the graphic right there, last match in August 2018, that is one calendar year for Bray Wyatt. He's been back a couple months. He's been cleared for a couple months as well, just hasn't actually wrestled. And of course, Finn Balor was just recently the Intercontinental Champion. A very unremarkable reign, mostly due to WWE's booking. This is a great opportunity, in my opinion, to set up long-term the Fiend versus the Demon at a future pay-per-view. I hope it's the Royal
Adam,
Rumble
let
in
me
January.
ask you this. Let me interrupt you and ask you this. You know my dislike for where we're going with Goldberg right now. They had an established Dolph as a legend killer. You know who's a legend killer right now? The Fiend. Does the Fiend show up in this Goldberg-Ziggler match? We don't even get a Goldberg-Ziggler match. We just get another opportunity to put over the Fiend as a guy who appears out of nowhere, puts his hand inside a legend's mouth, reaches a little bit deep, and takes out a bit of their soul. I mean, I'm down for that. Sign me up.
I'd love to be there with you on that, BC, but I think they're giving Goldberg a moment in the sun to make up for what happened at that Super Showdown. I think it's just, hey, Goldberg, get one back, go out on top. We're going to put you in one of the first matches on the card, and then you can kind of move on. I hope that's what it is, but if they go with the Fiend, BC, that's even better booking. But as you know, if you listen to our show, our booking ideas, they tend not to listen to all of them, and even though they probably should. Kevin Owens versus Shane McMahon, BC, is up next. Owens' career is basically on the line here. The stipulation in the match is that Owens will quit if he loses to Shane McMahon. We just had this match, I think, a year or 2 years ago. Obviously, the roles were reversed. Shane McMahon was the face. Kevin Owens was the heel. Now it's been flipped. We also have Owens doing this pseudo Stone Cold Steve Austin / CM Punk, but maybe not as good as either of them persona. What do you think of KO these days, and how do you see this match playing out?
Yeah, this has been a weird build. There's been elements of this build that have been great. Elements of KO's new turn into that Austin hybrid role that you mentioned that have been fantastic. There's also been weeks that they completely mailed it in with no development of storyline. We've seen a lot of this before. Heck, we've even seen Shane McMahon in a match with The Undertaker at WrestleMania that I thought his career was on the line. And then he lost. And then he came back next week, and his dad said, oh, the fans seem to like him. It's good for business, so he's going to stay on the roster. So I really don't have any belief that this is it for Kevin Owens. Either way, it's interesting here. I'll tell you one thing Shane McMahon does do very well, Adam. Show up at big pay-per-views when we are maybe not feeling the idea of his match. Take me back, please, to Orlando. Shane McMahon and AJ Styles kicking off WrestleMania. What did we say? Wow. You're only getting AJ Styles for a short window here, WWE. Why you wasting a WrestleMania match on Shane O'Mac? I don't know what's gotten into Shane O'Mac. I don't know what supplements he's taking. I don't know what he's drinking. But I'll have what he's having because he turns it up to another notch when it matters. I'm hoping this match does that. Surprises us a little bit. Has a wrinkle we're not seeing coming for storyline purposes. Because, like him or not, complain or not that he's getting too much TV time, Shane McMahon works in this heel role right now. Would love to see that faction that he's pseudo part of really evolve and bloom and become a Four Horsemen 2.0 for the future. Call it what you want. Have as many people in it that you want. But there is a role for Shane, so I'm interested in what they have for me. If they have nothing for me storyline-wise, and this is just a match that KO wins and goes over, it's a filler. It really is.
That's the thing. You can criticize Shane for being on both shows every week for a couple of months. They've rectified that. You can criticize Shane for sweating all the time like Patrick Ewing at taking a foul shot. They kind of rectify that because they don't have him do that much action anymore. But what you can't criticize Shane McMahon for is the way he shows up at pay-per-views. And I'm just going to co-sign what you said. You tell me that Shane McMahon's on a match Tuesday night on SmackDown. It's a shrug. It's a womp womp from me, right? But you tell me he's at a pay-per-view match and he's having it against one of the best wrestlers in the company, male or female, and Kevin Owens. And I'm excited for it because we've seen it. We know what they can do. We've seen what Shane can do against an AJ Styles, against a Roman Reigns, some of these other guys. It is truly legitimately entertaining, and he takes risks that someone with his experience level and his age really should not be taking these days. Now, there's no stipulation to this match in terms of it being Extreme Rules or a tables match or anything like that. But I think we know what we're going to see. We're going to see an attempted elbow drop from the top rope outside to a table. Maybe we'll see a Van Terminator in the ring. We'll see some very exciting moves from Shane. Ultimately, BC, I think you have to have Kevin Owens go over here. Not that you can't get away from the I quit stipulation. You can have him quit and come back on a different show, go over to NXT, join Undisputed Era. There's a million things you can do with KO. I think ultimately, though, you need to write off the Shane McMahon character, at least from an in-ring role, and this gives them the opportunity to do that.
I'm with you.
All right. Next match, we have the United States Championship. AJ Styles, the champion, defending against Ricochet. We've seen this match and different versions of this match a couple times, BC, and I think it's fair to say they have delivered every single time. Now we have AJ Styles reforming the club, which is now called the OC in WWE, and I think they're hitting some really big high notes too. How do you see this match playing out? And ultimately, do you think AJ Styles retains the title here, or do they go back to Ricochet?
I see this match stealing the show, and it should be in that conversation. It should be the one you circle anytime these two are getting together on the pay-per-view level. They've made magic, rightfully so, both incredible athletes, and you have to imagine the great experience that AJ Styles is handing off to Ricochet through this program. Ricochet has really sort of made some leaps and bounds to become a very credible mid-card title contender, title holder. I think he wins this. I think he should win this. One thing SummerSlam has been about historically are those babyface pops, are those moments. I mean, you can argue WrestleMania is too. Those are your two really tentpole pillar cards on the year for a reason. You want to send the fans home happy. I love what the OC, the club, the Bullet Club, the Gallows and Anderson, call them what you want. Call Gallows with his Warlord face paint back from Japan. Call me fired up, but call me expecting a 4.5-star match here. I'm not against putting the belt back on Ricochet and see what happens here because he's got it. He's got it all. And I think the more that they let him evolve on the microphone, more in tune with what his real personality is, there's no telling how far he can go.
Yeah, I think it's also important to note that AJ Styles, especially now in the reformed OC with Gallows and Anderson being the Raw Tag Team Champions, he really doesn't need the United States title. In fact, he really should be a heel going for the World Championship against a Seth Rollins or a face champion on that Raw brand. So this is a really good opportunity to put the title back on Ricochet, make him a 2-time champion. And you're right, BC. There's a lot of good matches on this card. This has the opportunity to be a great match, a show stealer. We've already seen it once in terms of them getting an extended period of time to go face-to-face on a pay-per-view. Let's run this back. I want to see Ricochet truly go over in a major way, somewhat clean, even if he has to go up against some interference from the Good Brothers, that's okay too. Let's get Ricochet the title back. Let's get a face as the U.S. champion, and let's move AJ Styles, more importantly maybe than even that, back into the main event of Raw, because his talent, his charisma, his ability is sorely needed at that level on the red brand, BC. Okay, coming up next, we have another similarly entertaining match. We teased it earlier in the show. Charlotte Flair against Trish Stratus. Now, this match did come a little bit out of nowhere. For me, I'm excited to see it. It's a match that's been talked about for years. But the question I have for you is, do you feel that the booking of this match, it's very rare we get a women's singles match in a non-title situation on a pay-per-view, particularly a major pay-per-view. Does this match overshadow the 2 women's matches we're going to talk about a little bit later on this card?
Yeah, certainly it does. The star power combined at this point blows the other 2 away, especially since we've sort of critiqued the B-sides of the other 2 title bouts in terms of whether it was the right choice now, considering who was out there to play with. But look, let's focus on this match. I've established that it's not necessarily for me. Not a big Trish mark. That's fine, though. I do love what the idea of this is. It's a passing of the torch. I'm Trish. I'm 43. I still got it. I got back in shape for the Women's Rumble last year. I've been lingering. I want to do this. I want to do this in Toronto, in my home, in front of my Canucks. I want to do this. Charlotte's the right one. Charlotte is the one that they rightfully are grooming to be the greatest of all time, the one that they're not going to allow her data or John Cena to crack that 16 world title mark that they're tied with, and they're letting her slowly add those reigns so she gets closer. She's the one, so this makes a ton of sense. Have I loved the build? That's the question. We're already putting it under the banner of a quick turn here, unique circumstances. I'll give them that pass. A couple weeks ago when they put it together, I love the intensity the 2 showed. This past week on the Go Home on SmackDown, however, this was cringe city, Adam. I love the little jab. Hey, I saw your minivan parked outside. I just don't think Trish has the chops for 2019 to compete with these other women who are good talkers on the microphone. The real question, though, is does she have the 2019 chops to compete in the ring? Because this is a new generation. She may have been a trailblazer that sort of set the stage for real wrestling on the women's side, but she's going to have to step up and show it. Obviously, Charlotte seems to be the best choice for that. I think it'll be good. It'll be a good piece of business. I'm not expecting anything more.
Yeah, it'll be great, I think. I think it's exciting to finally have this matchup that we've been waiting so long to see. But you kind of nailed it at the end, Brian. The top third of WWE's women's roster they're all better than Trish Stratus ever was. We're talking about mic work, in-ring work, ability to tell stories. And that's not to say that Trish wasn't great. She was a trailblazer for her time. And without her, maybe we don't get to this women's, not to use the buzzword that WWE wants us to, but evolution or revolution of the women's division that we've seen in the last year. But the truth is, when you do get into this match and you're thinking about, Trish's age and the fact that she hasn't wrestled in a long time, it doesn't, from a kayfabe standpoint, really tell me that she has any chance to beat Charlotte. And she certainly hasn't come across on the mic as any type of badass that is coming out of retirement and just going to absolutely end the greatest women's wrestler in WWE right now. So while we have Kofi Kingston and Randy Orton not even on TV the last couple weeks, and them running these incredible video promos to get us excited for this match, they have these women on back-to-back weeks and haven't really done any storytelling despite the clips they aired on SmackDown. I would have much rather this had been built through video packages telling us how great Trish was, how great Charlotte was, build it up over a couple weeks, and then give us the match. Instead, these promos that they had in the ring face-to-face, and we know it's not always great face-to-face, nothing face-to-face, they didn't really sell the match for me. And for that reason, I think I was disappointed.
Well, how about that? We know that this match is emanating from Toronto. We know that Charlotte and Trish, if you will, are kind of the female version historically of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Hulk Hogan. The best case thing they can do here is give us that WrestleMania 18 booking, brother. Have this be that women's Rock Hogan match. Give us similar kind of booking where where Charlotte's the heel, but she's getting some cheers. Trish is going to have a lot of big moments, and you think she might go over. But in the end, you got to do the business with the younger person and pass that torch.
I think ultimately the key, we're going to leave this match stratified. See what I did there? Okay. Next up, I'm sorry it was corny, but that's the kind of point. Roman Reigns does not have an official match on this card. Don't undersell that. That's not fair, BC. He doesn't have a match on this card just yet, but we expect him to. Why? Because the last couple weeks on Raw and SmackDown as well, Reigns has been dealing with this mystery attacker. First, basically trying to bulldoze him over with some stage gear. He was okay. Then a hit and run Monday night on Raw. They were trying to tease us that it's Samoa Joe. No, they had pictures that were leaked online showing that, hey, maybe it's Buddy Murphy. It's not Buddy Murphy either. End of SmackDown on Tuesday, they come out and tell us it's Rowan. And how do they tell us? They have Buddy Murphy basically squeak it while being submitted by Reigns backstage in a locker room area. Now, what you may not know, BC, is they came out on social media, cut a promo with Bryan and Rowan, with Bryan saying, hey, of course Buddy Murphy's going to come out and scream that it's Rowan. He could have picked anyone's name. The guy was getting submitted by Roman Reigns, one of the baddest men in WWE. And Bryan cut a great promo that only leads us, BC, to this conclusion. Roman Reigns against Daniel Bryan at SummerSlam. Is that where you think this match is going? I do. Obviously, I had the graphic guy go ahead and make it up for us. And if so, are you excited to see it, despite the build maybe being a little bit lackluster?
Yeah, look at this graphic guy trying to jump in here and book the damn territory here. I'll tell you what that interview with Bryan, which I did get a chance to hear, gave me. Gave me a little bit of hope. You're telling me there's a chance, Adam, that it still could be Buddy Murphy? Are you kidding me? It's obviously not Buddy Murphy. It should be Buddy Murphy. He's the American Kenny Omega, even though he's not American. He's a star waiting to bust out. All right, enough of that. So here's the deal with this. This card is already pretty damn loaded, right? We agree with that. I don't know if you need a match right here. You do need a sort of recurring presence and storyline, similar to what we see on Raw when you have one of those bookending storylines that opens the show, they cut to it backstage a few times, and then it sort of has a big reveal late. Maybe that's what this is, and maybe this is about announcing that this feud is beginning. Because if we're being honest, Adam, Roman Reigns against heel Daniel Bryan is big business. And if this card's so loaded that they didn't need to start this early, or maybe with the recent creative changes, they didn't come up with the idea for this until recently, then I don't know if you need to rush out a match right here. You need a backstage segment. You need some kind of reveal, in-ring thing, promos, whatever. But this could and should be a feud that maybe takes us all the way through Royal Rumble. I mean, I got to see this 3 times on the pay-per-view level if we're going to do this. So maybe we don't end up with a match, but we certainly really start to beat that drum and get it going.
That's a really good point. They could almost give us another attack while Roman's walking backstage, and maybe Roman dodges it this time, chases the guy, and it turns out to be Daniel Bryan. They brawl backstage and really almost give us a match, like 5-6 minutes in the backstage area throughout the crowd, out in Toronto somewhere, and start building something that maybe takes us into Survivor Series or the next pay-per-view or really wherever they want to go with it. So that is a really good option for this. If they ultimately have the match, I always get concerned, BC, because you know what I want? I want Roman Reigns to, at some point, lose a couple times in a row and have Daniel Bryan go over and make Roman Reigns fight from the bottom and build himself back into the babyface that WWE and Vince McMahon so desperately want him to be. And I think ultimately this feud gives him that opportunity. My concern would be him never getting that opportunity to start at the bottom, to have Daniel Bryan beat him clean in a match. And if that doesn't happen here, that's okay. I just want to see this feud kick-started in a major way, and I don't want them to have done basically 2 weeks of build for a throwaway SummerSlam match, and then they suddenly move on from it afterwards. So I thought your analysis on
I hear you. And what I don't need is a throwaway Roman and Rowan match, which I kind of feel like we could end up getting this place. But here's one thing you got to think of. What is it, October 4th, Friday night, SmackDown, Fox, primetime television? Big deal, right? You do need 2 giant stars in the early portion of a feud because look, WWE's got one chance, and I do mean this. That night, They got one chance for all those lapsed fans, all those people that used to watch, back when the only time it was on TV of that level was Saturday night's Main Event 4 times a year on NBC. People that are going to tune into Fox and go, all right, let's see where wrestling is in 2019. I haven't watched in a while. Maybe I only watch WrestleMania, and that's it each year. And if you're tuning in to Roman Reigns and Daniel Bryan as a heel feuding, you could do worse. So I kind of feel excited about that being a showcase possibility.
I actually don't hate the idea of Roman Reigns having a match with Rowan and beating the hell out of him in 5 minutes, and then Daniel Bryan almost pulling off the mask like Vince McMahon once did. It was me, Roman. It was me all along. I wouldn't mind that being how they develop it. That way you do get Roman Reigns in front of the crowd. You do get Daniel Bryan the ability to go over Roman. Maybe he attacks him with a chair or an object or something like that. I do think there is a good way to have a Roman match, not have it be Bryan, and still continue the feud. So let's see if they go that direction. Now we have 4 title matches that are going to close the show in some order, and we're going to start with what I consider the bottom, and I know you do too, the SmackDown Women's Championship. Bayley defending against Ember Moon, who was kind of thrown in as a #1 contender in this rushed build that I'm talking about so much, BC. You're not the biggest Bayley fan. You're not the biggest Ember Moon fan. So what do you actually want to see happen in this match?
I got 2 options from WWE here to keep me quiet and happy. You ready? Option number 1, give me 4 hot minutes and get out of here. Option number 2, this is when we see the boss. Sasha Banks returns. You and I ad nauseum has sort of started to book that. Does she come out to rescue Bayley? And then we slowly build to a female version of the Mega Powers exploding and finally get the rehash of their great NXT feud, but on the main roster. Or does Sasha come in and turn heel on Bayley? Either way, SummerSlam's the platform for this. We know that. It would work. We saw Charlotte and Becky Lynch have sort of a big moment last year, even though SummerSlam 2018 did not deliver to the level that the Dirty Bedsheets were expecting. More on that every week on the State of Combat podcast. But Adam, I don't think they have the plans for Moon. I don't think they trust Moon in this spot to become the champion. I think they said to themselves, look, this is about Sasha and Bayley. So we sort of need a GOAT. Not the greatest of all time, a GOAT. Think of Survivor, CBS, when they go to the final 3. You got to bring a GOAT in there, someone you know is not going to win. Ember Moon's your GOAT right here. It's all about the boss and the damn hug. There you go. It's yours.
I think you got some good booking, but the wrong match. So we'll get to that in a moment. This is what I want. I don't want 4 hot minutes here. I actually want 20 hot minutes of Bayley and Ember Moon.
Oh, get out of here.
And it's not that I love Bayley and it's not that I love Ember Moon as performers, but Brian, we have seen both of them in NXT put on absolute show stealers. We've seen Bayley do it with Sasha Banks, and we've seen Ember Moon do it with Asuka. These women can wrestle. So you know what? There's not a lot of storyline here. It's not very exciting. Give us a high work rate match. Give us something, you know, that meat that you like to talk about, that you want to sink your teeth into. Give us something that we can sink our teeth into here. And if it ends in a schmaz type of finish and Sasha Banks does interfere, that's okay. But make the match matter. Don't give us a 6-7 minute women's match that tells me, hey, not only did we not know how to book this match, but we didn't even know how to call the match. We didn't even know how to develop it and give you something on the pay-per-view that is worth talking about. Give me a match that's worth talking about.
Look at the stones on Silver King here. Look at the grapefruits on this guy. We're talking about SummerSlam not going into another 6-7 hour affair, even though there's 57 matches on it. This guy wants Bayley and Ember Moon to give us 20 minutes.
I do.
Get out of here, Adam.
I do want that, BC. And you know what? A lot of these SummerSlam WrestleMania cards, we're talking 14, 15, 16 matches. As I said at the opening of the show, there's 10 announced matches. Something with Roman would be 11. So it is for SummerSlam, not for WWE pay-per-views, but for SummerSlam, it is a relatively short card. That said, there's 3 matches left, and we're going to get to them right now. Raw Women's Championship. Becky Lynch against Natalya in a submission match. And BC, you'll go through the process here. This is where I do ultimately think that will get Sasha Banks. I'll explain why if you give me time in a minute. But this is a submission match. They've been putting over the sharpshooter as the superior finisher to Becky Lynch's disarmor. And I think it's fair to say they took this from a feud that was kind of, I said it earlier, womp womp, when it first got announced, into something that at least I actually want to see.
Yeah, Natalya is the MVP. I think of this entire SummerSlam season. She took something that you nailed it. We didn't want it. We've seen it. I don't need this in my life. Now I want this. Thank you, Natty Neidhart, you weird cat whisperer. You stepped up the aggression. You're a psychopath out there. It's sort of the perfect way to bring out a good side of Becky Lynch. And the good thing about Natty is she can work. We know that. So this will be a good match, but they have an opportunity to really do some good stuff from the idea of storytelling and where we go next. You're going to introduce your Sasha theory in a second. I'm going to introduce a theory that came in via DM slide from @TC on Twitter. You know that name, Adam, part of our extended family here. TC dropped a nugget in my head. It's not the most original nugget. I just hadn't thought of it. He said, BC, we're in Canada, right? This is a member of the Hearts, right? It's a submission match, right? Yeah, you nailed it, TC. What do you got for me? He says, how about a female version of the Montreal Screwjob with Becky being the one getting screwed, and then I'm adding now my own wrinkles onto it. It sort of makes Becky against the machine, Becky against the authority, which might be the best way to get the quasi-female Steve Austin sort of gold out of her. Wow, everybody's trying to be Austin lately. Adam, I don't hate that idea. Maybe you add your own little 2019 wrinkles in there, but I wouldn't mind Natty picking up the title in sort of a corporate helped situation, sort of getting one back for the Hart family if you really want to tie it in there. Maybe have Brett show up. This could get interesting.
I think if you do that, though, what you're doing is you're introducing Stephanie McMahon back onto television, and I don't know that the fan base as a whole wants that, especially while they're clamoring for Shane to get off television. So that would be my issue there. Otherwise, I don't know what authority figure would really hate Becky so much that they would try to pull that. You know, that the thing with that match was you had to get Vince McMahon, the Shawn Michaels Bret Hart match. You had to get Vince McMahon out to the ring somehow, and they were kind of telling that story a little bit, and the screw job obviously happened. Whereas here, you're introducing a completely
Adam,
new element.
I need to pause you before you hit me with some boss here, okay? Yeah. I need you to stay in the headspace of a female Montreal Screwjob here. Submission match, which if we're going full Screwjob, it's Natty putting Becky in her own move, the disarmer, which is basically an arm bar. Who does the arm bar really great? Who trained with Natty to become a professional wrestler? It's Ronda Rousey, who's been putting really cringy attempted comedy videos on the internet because she's bored while trying to start a family. Ronda Rousey. Do we see, Adam, Ronda show up in a wink, sort of like, hey, I trained, I gave back to Natty, I showed her the ways of the armbar, and she tapped Becky out, whether it's a screw job, whether it's straight up? Do we see Ronda Rousey on Sunday night?
See, I would like that. I'm not going to go ahead and predict that we will. She is in this so-called impregnation vacation, apparently. But, Brian, she does seem bored, brother. I wouldn't be surprised, ultimately, if we saw Ronda. I think that would be a nice nod, especially considering in this storyline, you had Fit Finlay trying to train Natty how to get out of the disarmor. Becky beat the hell out of Fit Finlay, her countryman there. So this kind of says, well, if you're going to go beat up Fit Finlay, I'm going to bring in someone else to help me. So I do like that idea. I do like the idea of Ronda Rousey showing up. In terms of how I think the match is going to go, what I expect to happen is for Becky Lynch to tap out Natty Neidhart with the sharpshooter. And then if you're going to book the damn territory, which we're known to do here on the State of Combat, my next move is for Sasha Banks to pop out of the crowd, hit Becky with the bank statement, be back to the legit boss heel Sasha Banks, and now you have a ready-made feud for that October, even though they're on Raw, that October changeover in WWE that we're expecting, Becky Lynch versus Sasha Banks. The other key there, it keeps Sasha on Raw, where we already have plenty of really talented, really good women on SmackDown. Raw needs those names. I want Becky, I want Sasha Banks, and I want that to be the way this match ends.
Wow.
Brian?
Wow. Give me Sasha Banks as the heel injection there. What's the opposite of a heel? Is it a heroine? Is that what the opposite of a heel is?
She would be a heroine, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, inject that. inject that storyline into my veins. Thank you.
Okay, well, we got 2 more to go, BC, and we're going to start with a match that I honestly think should legitimately main event the show. It's been built far better than the match that I believe ultimately will main event the show, but that's Kofi Kingston defending his WWE Championship against Randy Orton. You already heard me talk about it earlier on our audio portion of this show, BC. You've seen WWE cover the storyline, the long-term storyline between Randy Orton and Kofi Kingston that they've kind of just lucked into here ad nauseum. But man, this is something the Silver King is popping for in a major, major way. I've always wanted this story to be told, and now we have Kofi against Randy Orton for the WWE title at WWE's second biggest pay-per-view of the year. Brian, I think Randy Orton is going to win, take the title, and they're going to give us even more of this great storyline. Do you agree with that? And if so, why?
Yeah, I do agree with that. I think Randy Orton seems very refueled and fresh again. And I know he turned heel a year ago and we liked some of the things we've seen, but he's flowing again. And this storyline makes a ton of sense with the callbacks to when they did put on that really good program. So why not jump the belt onto Orton and then sort of explore some more of Kofi and maybe the beginning of the end of New Day. I know every week I try to come on the show, Adam, and be that wedge driver that gets us closer to a New Day triple threat match to main event and in between pay-per-view. One day we'll get there. I think it's time to put it on Orton, though, and I think he wouldn't be a bad guy to have a major title on when you do go, as we talk about, back to primetime network television again. So it will be interesting. Again, every one of these big matches sort of plays into that theme when you're sort of booking, is this the end of the feud? And if this kicks off a new feud, or if this starts a feud, is that a big enough feud for WWE to put their best foot forward? And again, it's not just about the SmackDown launch. It's about real competition coming in the form of AEW the same week, by the way, that SmackDown goes to Fox. So I certainly wouldn't be against here. I do want to mail a little love in the direction of Kofi Kingston. This reign, I know I picked against you every single pay-per-view. It was good. It was really good.
It was
really good in the ring. He had some good moments. I know you pop for Kofi Silver King. I know that's your flavor. I loved it. This will be something I look back on very fondly, but I think it does end Sunday night.
Yeah, it's been one of the best booked reigns in WWE for a world champion in quite some time with Kofi Kingston. I think it's great, but you absolutely nailed the booking here. You have Orton go over, win the title from Kofi. You have Kofi go back, not to the bottom, but to the part of the main event picture or mid-card where you have to start winning matches, number one contenderships, you get another title opportunity, and what you book for the main event of SmackDown on October 4th on Fox is Kofi Kingston versus Randy Orton for the WWE Championship, and you have Kofi Kingston win the title on that first SmackDown. I got a little goosebump right there talking about that. That's how you book it. You give me that match, you give me Roman Reigns and Daniel Bryan, and you have a massive, awesome SmackDown card to open your new deal October 4th on Fox. I think you have to put the title on Orton here. It is not that Kofi can't continue his reign, because he can, but the truth is he's legitimately running out of heel challengers that I want to see him fight. What I want to see is an extended feud with Randy Orton. Honestly, what I want to see is Randy Orton as WWE champion, because when he has that title, he's great at it. He's a 14-time champion for a reason. Give him the 15th strap. Maybe have in the future an Orton-Cena thing where Orton's going for, Cena's going for 17, Orton's going for that 16 to tie. That's a great storyline. Also, we know we don't see John Cena a lot, but that's something I would buy into at a WrestleMania or a Royal Rumble or another big event. I am a huge fan of Kofi Kingston. I'm a huge fan of Kofi Kingston as WWE champion, BC, but it is time for this reign to end at the hands of Randall Keith Orton. Okay, our main event, our expected main event for SummerSlam, Brock Lesnar defending his newly won Universal Championship against Seth Rollins. Lesnar had the Money in the Bank briefcase, cashed it in at Extreme Rules, took the title from Seth Rollins after his gruesome main event alongside Becky Lynch against Baron Corbin and Lacey Evans there. Brian, I gotta be honest, the build to this match hasn't done anything for me. I think the Lesnar attack on Rollins 2 weeks ago was exciting. The one this week was boring and repetitive, and Rollins really did not sell this match with his promo afterward. Where do you stand going into this? And honestly, do you see Seth Rollins winning the title back at SummerSlam?
I don't know how they could make that make sense storyline-wise. I don't know how they could present a match where we would feel happy afterwards with Rollins going over, even though he's a babyface that people obviously really like. We nailed this to open the extended audio version of this week's podcast. So if you're watching this on video, please download the full audio. We sort of nailed what was wrong in terms of presenting Seth Rollins this way, how they've given him X-Pac go-home heat. They've given him some of that apathetic sort of Roman-type reaction to him as a babyface. He's better as a heel. We know this. I don't think they're going to turn him heel here. So if they're not going to do that, you have to have Brock Lesnar win. And I think you have Brock Lesnar win actually dominantly. I know that goes against what we're sometimes led to believe, and that's when somebody takes a beating in the go-home episode or the combined final few weeks leading into a pay-per-view. It's typically the setup for that guy who's been beaten to come back over the top. But it all goes back to where they screwed up at WrestleMania. Seth beat Brock way too easily. We didn't know if Brock was going back to the UFC. We didn't know what. So a couple low blow shots and 3 stomps and he wins the title right there. If you have Brock lose to him again without a Seth Rollins dirty, violent heel turn that would really pop the crowd, you're killing Brock Lesnar. You really are. You're killing him. Because in theory, look, what's pro wrestling? Pro wrestling is a sort of fake presentation of what real fighting would be. And there's no chance Seth Rollins can beat up Brock Lesnar under that unless you're getting help or there's a storyline where he was, he's just overcoming so much. He's not going to give up, which they tried to do this week and it didn't work, as you mentioned. So you only make Brock Lesnar, by the way, former UFC heavyweight champion, look really bad if he's going to lose clean to Seth Rollins here. You have to have him win. And it's actually, Adam, tell me if I'm wrong here, better for business if Seth Rollins wins. Why? I'm saying if Brock Lesnar wins. Why? Because we're heading into that very important territory with competition coming, with the move to SmackDown on Fox, all these things we keep telling you ad nauseum, where you're going to have to bring the big guns. What's a big gun feud to start up here? Brock Lesnar as your Universal Champion against AJ Styles. Maybe it doesn't work to you because AJ's a heel right now. Maybe there's an equal one you can throw out there, but that's the kind of feud you want to start off of this. So let's have Brock win, and let's start doing some big business.
Yeah, it's tough. The only reason I'm not definitely picking Brock Lesnar, I haven't decided yet, we'll have our official picks later this week on CBSSports.com. The only reason I'm not 100% in that camp is they had a white meat babyface in Seth Rollins on Raw, dejected, thinking about quitting, guaranteeing he will win the title at the second biggest pay-per-view of the year. And WWE, Vince McMahon, does not ever have faces guarantee victory and then have them lose. So if you're asking me going into the match coming off of Monday Night Raw, do I think Seth Rollins should win? No. But there is a chance that in the course of the match, over the course of this match on Sunday at SummerSlam, they do a good enough job storytelling-wise to make me believe and want Seth Rollins to win. If he gets beat down but keeps kicking out, hits a couple really great moves and almost has Lesnar a couple times but can't get the 1, 2, 3, and then eventually somehow either rolls him up, hits his stomp finisher 3 times, whatever the case might be. What they can't give us is honestly what you suggested, which is another quick match, because we've seen it before. We saw Brock Lesnar do that to John Cena, where he hit him with 15 German suplexes, an F5, beat him clean, and then to get Cena coming back. They continued the storyline. My key is I don't want to continue this storyline anymore. Just like I didn't want any more Brock Lesnar, Roman Reigns, I don't want any more Brock Lesnar, Seth Rollins. We just had this match at WrestleMania. They had the opportunity to give us a great match. Instead, they do what they always did. They did what they always do whenever they have Brock Lesnar lose, which is they really don't have him lose clean. It took low blows for The Undertaker, John Cena, Seth Rollins just to beat The Undertaker. Even Roman Reigns needed the distraction of Braun Strowman outside the ring in order to beat Brock Lesnar. So for me, it's just, let's get this over with one way or another. I'm of the belief you don't need Brock Lesnar to have the Universal title to make him matter in WWE. He can have matches with any superstar on both brands, be a dominant beast, and win a ton. Ultimately, BC, I do think they move Brock Lesnar over to the blue brand, over to SmackDown before that launch on Fox. So if you're going to do that, you do need to have Brock Lesnar lose the title here. So for me, ultimately, I don't mind if they put Seth over, but they better rectify all the booking errors they've made the last few weeks in the actual match on Sunday in Toronto.
I can't handle, and look, if this is going to be the main event, we know it is. This is the biggest business match in terms of the names there. They're not going with Trish and Charlotte with no title on the line. So this is the big one. You got to have something, though, more than just babyface Rollins overcomes and wins and the crowd cheers. So I'm wondering, because you know how badly I not want but need Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins to main event next year's WrestleMania in Tampa, and I need a Mega Powers 2.0 storyline to get there. Since Roman doesn't have a match technically for Sunday, are we looking at WrestleMania 4 main event style booking here to go full on Mega Powers for you, where Reigns is playing the role of Hulk Hogan ringside in Rollins' corner, helping him out? Rollins can play the role of Randy Savage, kind of makes a ton of sense, right? Reigns helps him win. The two Shield members that are remaining close the show arm in arm with the title around Seth's waist, and that begins the run toward their friendship breaking up and eventually meeting at next year's WrestleMania. And the reason why I bring this up now, one, because I'm a monster Mega Powers mark, and I'm not going to die, Adam, until this gets cashed in and this happens. But two, because in some form, your SummerSlam main event should inform, tip off, or set the stage for what your WrestleMania main event is the next year. This is perfect.
It would work. The problem is we have not seen Reigns and Rollins near each other, even in the same vicinity, since that man formerly known as Dean Ambrose left WWE. So it would take a lot of day of booking, backstage segments and pep talks and things like that to get these two back together to make something like that happen. And let's not forget, Roman is dealing with his own issues on SmackDown, as we mentioned earlier, possibly with Daniel Bryan. So ultimately, BC, I think SummerSlam is going to be a good show. I do put some trust in WWE to deliver, because for all of our issues with their week-to-week television and their lacking continuity in terms of their booking styles, the pay-per-views have delivered as of late. This one has another one. But if you're telling me to have high hopes based on the build to this show, you're not going to get me to say yes.
They have to deliver. They really do, because the only time WWE really forces themselves to change is when it's financially fueled. And right now, it is that. There's competition coming. They got to put that stomp down right now and remind people that it's going to be different heading into this fall season. And with Paul Heyman on board, I'm gonna go with the over in terms of them coming up and delivering, you know, kicking us, stomping us right in that feel hole, making us excited when we exit Sunday night. And speaking of exiting Sunday night, Adam, we'll have even more audio for these people.
Absolutely. We have a full preview of NXT TakeOver Toronto coming up on the State of Combat podcast. That's a separate episode from the one that this show is on. That's coming out Thursday leading into SummerSlam. That event, of course, is Saturday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, live on the WWE Network. And on that show, on that NXT TakeOver Toronto preview, BC, we have interviews with the champion, Adam Cole, BAYLEY, and Johnny Gargano.